Hello, this is Ms. Schrader. Today we're going to be talking about the influences of Islam in southern Spain, the area known as Andalus. My students, you should be getting out a piece of paper to take some notes. When you're done, you're going to be giving me between 5 and 7 sentences on the subject matter, things you think are important, interesting, and educational. Okay, let's get started. Now, as you look at this map, you can see that for a while there, the largest part of Spain was controlled by Islam. The Caliphate of Cordoba, the green part, is the part that was controlled by the Muslims. And they did that from about 711 until about the 15th century. And this map perhaps shows you a better idea of the spread of Islam throughout the Middle Ages. And you can see over on the left side where the sort of brownish area is, that the Muslims travel through northern Africa and up into Spain. They move forward and they actually got into France and hoped to control basically all of Europe. But at the Battle of Tours in France in 732, Charles Martel beat Abdul al-Rahman and pushed the Muslims back south. After that, the Muslims remained in Spain and the other territories that they had gotten control of and never came back into the parts of northern and western Europe. Abdul al-Rahman set up his capital in Cordoba, which is in the southern part of Spain. You can see it there right now. The bridge to the left is actually a Roman bridge. So a lot of his capital was built on the foundations of Roman areas. Just outside of Cordoba, he built the city of Madinat al-Zahar, which today is no longer a city. It is just the ruins, but it's beautiful. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. During the 50-year reign of Abdul al-Rahman III, who is the grandson of Abdul al-Rahman, that was a golden age for Muslims in Spain. They were doing a lot with literature, medicine, art, and mostly architecture. And we are going to be focusing mostly on the architecture. One of the main features of a Muslim house in southern Spain would have been some sort of an indoor courtyard with fresh water coming in, like you can see in the picture here. The Muslims were more inclined in the Middle Ages to bathe more regularly than the people of Europe, so they wanted to make sure they were keeping clean. The garden is also going to allow them an opportunity to keep fresh fruits and vegetables and flowers growing in the area. They also used a lot of arches like the ones that you can see here. Now, they got a lot of their ideas from the Romans. Unlike the Europeans who had basically lost a lot of their Roman knowledge, the Muslims had retained it. You should also notice that there's a lot of geometric shapes and designs in these arches. Once again, remember we discussed the fact that they wouldn't be putting people in their artwork. It would have been geometric shapes and writing. One of the most famous Muslim buildings in southern Spain is the Alhambra in Granada, which is southern Spain. And this is one of the most famous views of it, the interior with these arches that have the stripes in it. The Alhambra was originally built as a fortress, a battle area, in 889, and it was built on the remains of a Roman fortification. In the mid-13th century, it became a palace for Nasser Muhammad ben al-Amir. Eventually, when the Muslims were pushed out in 1492, it was taken over by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. This hall here is quite famous because, for one reason, is that because it was here that Christopher Columbus came to speak to Ferdinand and Isabella about getting money to travel west. And here you get another view just showing arch after arch after arch. And this is an enormously famous and popular tourist site. It's also another UNESCO World Heritage Site. And this Muslim style of artwork or architecture that was used in southern Spain became used even more in other countries as time goes by. The picture you're actually looking at is the interior of Mission Dolores in San Francisco. But if you look up at the roof and the ceiling area where they have those stripes, it looks very much like El Andalus. And this is actually one of the buildings in Balboa Park in San Diego, California. And they are specifically made to look in the Moorish style. And in 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain pushed the Muslims out of Spain, taking over all of it for the Catholics. The architecture, some of the differences in the language, all of these things continue to have an effect in Spain. You can see and hear the Moorish effect on it, even after all these many, many years. And once again, this is the Alhambra from the outside. So you've seen some of the inside, and I want to make sure you've seen the outside as well. My students, you are giving me 5 to 7 sentences about what you have learned about El Andalus, including the Alhambra if you want to. And anybody else, I hope you found it educational and interesting.